In 2017, experts had dueling conclusions regarding his competency. The judge sided with the forensic psychologist who concluded Nikko Jenkins was faking aspects of mental illness and knows right from wrong, and that was a deciding factor to move forward with a death sentence.
Nikko Jenkins, the Serpent God Killer, most dangerous inmate ever? Imagine a man so dangerous they decided to lock him away for 450 years before execution. A master manipulator, a sinister force so potent he was a threat not just to society, but even within the cold, hard walls of prison itself. Nikko Jenkins, a name that once sent shivers down the spines of many, an inmate whispered about as one of the scariest to ever draw breath. Years ago, his menacing mugshot exploded across the internet, a viral sensation built on an intimidating stare and the terrifying rumor that his gaze could be your death sentence. Nikko Jenkins was deeply intertwined with a history of criminal activity. We're talking about a family that has, shall we say, left a rather indelible mark on the city of Omaha. 7 of his close family members, his mother, father, 3 sisters, uncle, and cousin, are all convicted felons. And the worst of them all is Nikko. From a young age, Nikko's life was marred by trauma. He was reportedly a witness as well as a victim of numerous distressing experiences, and this hints at troubled upbringing, a potential breeding ground for the darkness that would later consume him. While we're not suggesting that bad blood predetermines destiny, it certainly paints a picture of the environment Nikko was raised in. Even as a child, the warning signs were glaringly obvious. At the tender age of 7, he brought a loaded .25 caliber handgun to elementary school. By 11, he'd abandoned regular schooling and was being kicked out of group homes for his constant aggression. And by 13, he had already got a taste of what it was like to stab someone. Now, it was almost inevitable that Nikko would find his way into the criminal justice system. And in 2003, at just 15 years old, he got imprisoned for 2 armed carjackings. But prison walls weren't enough to contain Nikko's destructive tendencies. While serving his time, he continued to be a disruptive force. The courts added 2 extra charges to his sentence, one for attacking a guard and another for inciting a prison riot. Now, here's a crucial decision that in fact changed many people's lives for the worst. Instead of the additional sentences running consecutively, meaning one after the other, the court ordered them to run concurrently. This meant Nikko served no extra time for these violent acts within prison. He just served his initial 10.5 years and was released in 2013. Hindsight, as they say, is 20/20. But this decision raises serious questions about the justice system's ability to assess and manage truly dangerous individuals. Was this a misjudgment with devastating consequences? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Fast forward to 2013. Nikko Jenkins is a free man, 10.5 years behind bars. A chance to start over? To learn from his mistakes? Absolutely not. Just 11 days after his release, he embarked on what can only be described as an absolute killing spree. The first victims were Juan Pena and Jorge Luis. They were shot and killed just 11 days after Nikko walked out of prison. And here's where the deeply disturbing involvement of his family comes into play. Nikko allegedly used his cousin and sister to lure these 2 men to their deaths. Both victims were shot in the head, and their wallets were stolen. This wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a calculated, familial execution. But the horror didn't end there. Just 8 days later, Nikko murdered one of his old prison buddies, Curtis Bradford. The chilling detail here is that the day before the murder, these 2 men took a picture together. The motive? Nikko's sister reportedly believed Curtis's friends were responsible for shooting up their house 6 months ago. So they allegedly set a trap, luring Curtis under the guise of a robbery, only for it to be a fatal hit. Just a couple of days later, Nikko pulled over a random SUV and shot a woman 4 times. The victim was Andrea Kruger, a mother of 3. Once again, a member of his family was allegedly involved. This time, his uncle, Warren Levering. So, in this short span, we have his sister, cousin, and now uncle, all allegedly complicit in his murderous rampage. His mother, Lori Jenkins, bought him ammunition used in these murders and knew about what was happening. This paints a truly disturbing picture of a family seemingly entrenched in a culture of violence and crime. It wasn't long before the law caught up with Nikko. He finally got arrested on an unrelated threats charge. But as investigators began to piece together the puzzle, the horrifying truth emerged. These murders were all linked to Nikko Jenkins. Behind bars, his behavior took an even more sinister and bizarre turn. During an 8-hour interrogation, Nikko confessed to all 4 murders, but his explanation sent chills down the spines of investigators. He claimed it was a sacrifice for the Egyptian serpent god Apophis, an ancient deity of chaos and darkness. The courts were initially seeking the death penalty. But while in prison, Nikko took extreme measures. He reportedly got his hands on a razor and carved Satan into his forehead. Then, in a truly disturbing act of self-mutilation, he split his tongue in half to resemble a snake. And if that wasn't enough, he allegedly used a guard's badge to mutilate his genitals, attempting to make them resemble a serpent. These actions understandably raised serious concern about Nikko's mental state. Was this genuine psychosis? Or was it a calculated attempt to evade the death penalty by appearing insane? The judge certainly had apprehensions, questioning the prison warden about how Jenkins even managed to obtain a razor in solitary confinement under constant surveillance. The warden's response, stating he didn't know how and couldn't guarantee it wouldn't happen again, is frankly alarming. How could such extreme self-harm occur under such supposedly tight security? Adding to the absurdity and the security concerns, on another occasion, Nikko reportedly managed to grab a set of 7 handcuff keys and swallow them. Looking at Nikko Jenkins, his menacing appearance, his horrific crimes, his bizarre behavior behind bars, coupled with his family's history, it seems like a clear case of a deeply disturbed individual spiraling out of control. But here's where the narrative takes a surprising turn. After being evaluated by multiple state psychiatrists, they all reached the same conclusion. Nikko was faking his mental problems. Despite his barbaric behavior, these experts believed he was extremely cunning and fully aware that a diagnosis of insanity or incompetence could shield him from the death penalty and land him in a psychiatric ward instead. Anyways, this brings us to the crucial ruling. While the initial hope for the death penalty faced hurdles, a panel of 3 judges ultimately had the final say. In May of 2017, they delivered their verdict. For the death penalty to be implemented, all 3 judges had to agree unanimously. It was official. Nikko Jenkins was finally going to face the ultimate consequence for his horrific crimes. Even if the death penalty hadn't been imposed, Nikko Jenkins would still have to serve a staggering 450 years in prison. That's not just a lifetime, that's multiple lifetimes. It effectively ensures that Nikko Jenkins will never walk free again. The story of Nikko Jenkins is a dark and disturbing one. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of evil, the failures of our systems, and the complexities of mental illness versus calculated criminality. Was he a product of his environment? Was he inherently evil? Or was he a cunning manipulator who played the system to his advantage? The psychiatrists believe the latter. Let us know your opinions in the comments section below. This is a case that sparks a lot of debate, and we're eager to hear your perspectives.